All right, it is 5:58 a.m. When did you get up?
2:30ish.
That's about when I got up.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have another long day. Last week with Marty on the bay, we covered 41.8 miles.
Something's insane.
Yeah, with one of these things, one of these 915 watt-hour batteries. I actually ran out and had to paddle the last several miles with the motor. What we're gonna do today is a much slower burn. We're probably going to cover, I don't know, we'll see what we get done. Yeah, but we're going to do a mile an hour.
Somewhere about 20 probably. I'm thinking 20.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit about what our goals are once we get out on the water. You're already in the water?
Yeah, I just over there throwing a little top water, see if I can maybe get some action, but nothing yet. So
cool. We're on Raystown Lake, and we're going to treat today much like you would pre-fish, even though there's no tournament going on here, but it's kind of to show off what the 915 watt-hour battery paired with any of the ultralights can give you in terms of range for bass fishing.
There very well could be a tournament here if an organization wanted to bring one. I'm just saying. It's a big enough lake.
We'll see what kind of fishery it is. Largemouth, smallmouth, striper. Yeah. You're disappointed there's no spots?
Yeah, I wanted some spots, but you know.
Whatever.
I'll just keep going to Alabama.
I will say that we still have pre-spawn fish. It's almost June here. 2 weeks ago, I was up this way with Bill Derberaw, and it snowed on us.
Yeah.
So it's been a cold spring.
In this cove, and I don't know what it's going to be out in the main lake, but in this cove, I did see 67-degree water this morning.
Okay. So it's warmed up a bunch very quickly, but it's a big, deep Appalachian-based reservoir.
That could be very misleading because yesterday was 89 degrees was the high here, so this cove could still be warm from that. So
right. All right, let's go do it.
All right, let's do it.
So the concept for today's trip is to see how far we can go at the speeds that you would normally power fish. And what I mean by that is throwing a jackhammer or a spinnerbait or crankbait or swim bait out in front of you, but constantly seeing new water. So we're gonna track it with the Angler app. We'll go ahead and hit start, and I'll give it a trip name, and it'll log the trip as we go. It does require a good bit of battery power, and I got my phone cord here hooked up to the let me see if I can actually let you guys see that. I'll move my kid's lunch pail there so you can see the 915 watt-hour battery. It's going to have a pretty constant draw just with my cell phone recharging cable. That's going to do very little in the way of depleting this battery, so I'm not really so worried about that as much as what's our drawdown on the 915 watt-hour over the course of what I think is going to be about I don't know, could be 15 or 16 hour day on the water. The application to what we're doing, I think, is showing what you can accomplish, the distance you can cover in pre-fishing, of really just getting a really nice survey of what kind of fishery is out there. You cover lots and lots of miles with very little energy input, and just maintaining that 0.8 to 1.1 mile per hour speed that's usually required of just continually casting at the bank in front of you. So I know we're going to make it to the backs of several shallow areas. That's going to be a key target area for us, is finding anything shallow. Like I mentioned, it's a Appalachian based reservoir, and there's a lot of steep banks, and wherever you find a lot of flat areas, that's going to be a good area for us to focus on, in this very late delayed pre-spawn area of catching these largemouth and hopefully some smallmouth too. I'm starting out today with it's a 3/4 ounce Z-Man jackhammer with the I think it's about a 7-inch swimmers, so fairly big profile, good bit of weight. Just chucking it out, winding it in. So right now I'm going 1.6 mile per hour. I'm using 10 watts, even that's a little bit too fast, so I'm going to slow down to about 7 watts, and that will feed me a very constant supply of new water to just keep throwing. A lot of casts today. So I've seen a lot of different types of shoreline here. This one's rocky, and I switched to, it's a grass kickers minnow with the chin locks, because I was skipping in the last cove back. I was skipping up into the brush and the grassy areas. There is some coontail in here. In fact, I think I just picked up a little bit there. So good variety of different cover and structure. There's some stumps here and there, some real rocky type drop-offs, and there's some gradual taper offs that go into, you know, I don't know, maybe 50 feet from shore. You still have 6 or 8 feet of water, which is, I think, where most of our largemouth are going to be. I have seen smallmouth swimming around. Haven't caught any of them yet. I think I could catch them if I would finesse, but I'm trying to just keep moving and cover water. So right now I have 96% of the battery remaining, and we're going to take a look at the Angler app to see how far that brought us. But most of the time I'm operating this at about, well, less than 13 watts. Usually gets me up to at least 1 mile an hour. If you go much more than 1 mile per hour, you're kind of missing targets as you pass them on the shoreline. So very low, and obviously, you know, we're stopped right now, and it takes a while to get up to 1 mile per hour. But once you're there, maintaining it is, you know, 13 watts is more than enough. So we'll take a look at the progress so far. What we got with 4% of the battery. We started back here at the back of James Creek, worked to this shoreline, crossed over, did this shoreline, which was nice and rocky. Got to the back of this cove, saw some good fish here. You know, we went to the next one, and it was very muddy, and there was a lot of grass. But this one, this smaller cove that doesn't look like it has a major creek coming in, was a little bit clear and just had, I don't know, I was able to see a number of good fish shallow. This is an area that we can't go in, so we're going to go ahead and turn around and come back out, and we're going to continue on to some of these other areas, you know, these back cove type areas. We'll see. Nice, man. Big TRD?
Yep.
Good.
I honestly think that's the pattern. This one's not nearly the size of the one I just lost. Got a lot better hook set on this one, though.
What'd you just pick up in the water there?
A little bait fish.
You're just twitching like that.
Yep. I think he'd had enough. He was laying there on the top of the water.
Needs a big old largemouth to come swallow him.
That's not a bad idea.
You gonna put him on his trailer? You can put him on a jackhammer?
Listen, there's no tournament. I might. I mean, the best we can do is get in our lure box and see if we can match it.
Yep. So this opening in the trees right here, that's definitely the remnants of an old roadbed, because you can see way back up in the woods, and it's a straight shot of no trees. Might give us some indication as to some deep water structure further back in the direction that it's headed. right, finally got one on the board. Let's see what he is. It was on a little piece of wood, and all I was doing is skipping the zinker ahead of me. So with this light and the reflection of this steep bank, you can see the technique that I've been using, casting the zinker forward, and as I'm moving forward at a very slow rate of speed, all I'm doing is keeping up with the line and watching it. I'm looking to see, does it twitch, does it move forward, does it move left to right, and once I catch up with it, I recast and I let it have all these coils, because the coils will actually tell me something. When they straighten out, that lets me know there's a fish. It's just that bright yellow braided line is basically your strike indicator, just like fly line. And usually when it's a bluegill, it'll pop, pop, pop. I mean, it'll jump and then back off. But if it's a bass, it'll jump and then start moving away. And if it's a smallmouth, it jumps hard and charges. There he is, Mr. Smallmouth. Little guy. Let's see. Oh, that was interesting. Snake crossing right at the same time I got this guy hooked. I was like, all right, the bass jumping spooked the snake. The snake said, I'm gonna get on that rock, which was my kayak. I'm like, no, 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 get away. Did you watch all that happen?
Yeah, did you lose that fish?
No, I unhooked him.
So what was up with that snake?
The snake was spooked by the fish jumping, and he turned him towards the kayak. Nice, man. All right, I'm coming off of the going slow because Jake's up there. He says he's got a muskie.
It's a tiger muskie, dude. He doesn't want to be out of the water. Beautiful tiger muskie. We're gonna get a release on it right now.
This guy's already got a hook in his mouth. Took that out for him. Started throwing something smaller. Got that little finesse jig with a little paddle tail trailer on there. What do you hit? Same thing?
Big TRD.
Yep.
Came right out.
Chunky.
A little better. We got into some fish in this little cove. It's almost like a, kind of reminds me like a Tennessee River type deal where you got these little cut-ins and the currents coming down the lake, and this area is just big and wide and slow, and that's where they're hanging out. So This is probably a good spawning flat right here. GoPro, stop recording.
All right, back into one of these back bays. And some kind of muddy water. Went back to the zinker, skipping in brush. More little guys. As many of those as you want. So we've moved to a big grass flat at the back of, I can't even call it one of the coves. It's bigger than, you know, the other coves that we've been in that are kind of long and finger-like. This is sort of a huge triangle. It's a big wide valley is what it is, and it's not particularly deep in here, which is unusual for this lake. And there's a big expansive area of a lot of grass, a lot of it in 2 feet, more of it in 4 to 6 feet, with pieces of it coming up to the surface. And what I'm doing is just drawing a grid on it, you know. I'm going to show you here in a second with my finger, but you basically you run parallel lines, or roughly parallel lines, back and forth across it, casting on right and then left, and you know it allows you to strain a lot of water. So basically, you know, you start in the back corner, you move along, you take a U-turn, you come back, take another pass, come down, take a U-turn, come across, and that's where I'm at right now. I'm getting out to where I think there's some 12-foot deep water over here, and I'm gonna kind of steer back into the 6 to 8 with the grass coming close to the surface, because I think there should be some good fish in there. So far, the only fish we've caught back here have been, you know, on the shoreline, as many as you want, you know, with the zinker, and they're about that big, maybe 12 inches. Most of them 8 and 10. So that's not what we're looking for today. Hopefully we get a couple better ones. The drawing the grid, we actually do the same thing on the Chesapeake, especially early spring, where you have a big sand flat that, you know, there's a lot of shallow water that warms up before anything else. It's a good way to find the little channels or trenches or whatever features are out there that are holding fish. Shopping carts and refrigerator. In Baltimore, that's what you find. Whatever holds structure, you find it by drawing a grid.
Caught this smallmouth on a big TRD in mud bug color. Gonna get him back in the water.
So we started the day at a little after 6 a.m. on the water. Right now it's 6:22, so over 12 hours. What do you think we would have drawn that 915 watt-hour battery down to? Because we're just sipping away at it. 16 watts is what I'm doing right now. I got 1 mile an hour as my speed. At that range, I still have about 44 miles of range. We got 82% and we still got distance to go. We've made the loop of all the different coves, you know, back that way. We're finally out on the main part of the lake here. We're gonna check out some main lake points and then round it up and head back. I don't know, we'll probably have another 2.5 hours out here. There's my feisty smallmouth.
So this is a school of bait fish in front of us. I mean, they've been coming up to the surface and everything every so often, but just following them around with the live scope and keeping them in front of us. See if we can't maybe get some fish beneath them to eat.
Every, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes you'll see a school that'll get nervous at the top, and then usually within about 30 seconds of when you see it all nervous that they're crowding the surface. You see one? Okay. All right, sun's going down. We're cruising back to the launch. I'm still at 79%. What did you end up at?
I got 54%, but I've been buzzing around a lot more than you have, so.
Right, and that's the difference. We'll take a final look here at the end, and then pull up the Angler app and see how many miles that is for roughly 20% of the 915 watt-hour battery. All right, we've made it back to the launch, and let's take a look real quick. I've got the light out so we can actually read. We are at 78%. Let's go ahead and end the Angler trip. We'll hit yes. So 22. All right, we did 15.5 miles, so which is about how many hours we've been out here. So 1 mile an hour. We didn't even use, you know, a quarter of the battery. So for sure, you got a 3-day weekend in there. You got pre-fishing and a 2-day tournament if you want, if you play it right. So 15.5 miles. It's a long day, and caught a bunch of fish. Let's go ahead and hit play on the on this. I think it's funny how the satellite imagery is of when this lake was frozen. So saw some good ones in that first set of coves, and we definitely saw a lot of, you know, a lot of the lake for sure. There's his muskie caught on that glide bait. We hit each one of these coves and went out to the main lake here, and then came back in and kind of returned to the first one we did. So that's it, 15.5 miles. It's a good day.